before we get started, and I just want to, we're here because of the election, and I'm glad that everybody came tonight, and I appreciate that. But the sad thing is, in Bonneville County, and I'll reiterate that, only 25% of the registered voters voted. Okay, that means 75% of them stayed home. That's a problem. And so we need to remember, the voting is a privilege. It's a right that we have, and it's what causes us to be able to actually have the democracy and have the represented republic that we have. So get out and vote, and get your family to get out and vote, and do all that. And especially this, we're going to have this special election, the runoff election on December 2nd. You need to get out and vote. Okay, you really do need to do that. So I encourage all that. Also, real quick, this year is the 250th anniversary of the Revolutionary War. Next July 4th, will be the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And that's a huge thing, and I say this, none of us would be here tonight if it wasn't for what happened 250 years ago. And there's a nationwide celebration going on. It's called the America 250 Commission. And if you like what we do, we'd encourage you to actually support us, give us some, throw some dollars in the jar and whatnot. But also what we're going to do is we're raffling off this wood flag. And we have raffle tickets. They're $20 a piece, but we're going to sell them until next July 4th, maybe the 3rd. But we'll draw the winning on the 4th and whatnot, but give this away. Come up and look at it. It's an awesome piece of work, and it's a one of a kind. You won't see it. There's not another one in the United States. So I think it's a great thing, so I'd encourage you to do that. Also, Ben Geeson, he's back here selling some books. If you would have come or listened to what happened, Ben's presentation last week, it's about money and how it works and some of those things. And there was a lot of grousing and whatnot, but it's about the Federal Reserve, these types of things. But the short of it is this, is if you want to change something, before you can change it, you need to understand how it works. And that's what Ben is all about, is showing us the mechanics of it and all this. So it's really good. And he has a book up there he's trying to sell and whatnot. I encourage you to buy it, especially because he says for every book bought, he's going to give us, donate $5 to Stand Up for Idaho. So like I say, this is not inexpensive to do, and we need all the help that we can get. And on that final note, mark your calendar for February 7th. Stand Up for Idaho, we're going to have a gala. Okay, and this will be our third or fourth one, but it's our primary fundraiser that we have. It's a semi-formal, formal night of dancing and entertainment. We'll have some, fancy hors d'oeuvres, these type things. A couple of us will dress up fancier than we ever like to be, but it's okay, and it's just a good time. And we encourage people to come. We're going to have some live auction things and stuff like that. So if you signed in and all that, be sure to keep you posted what all this is happening. So mark your calendars for February 7th. Real quick again, this week is a horrendously busy week for Stand Up for Idaho, obviously. We have tonight's forum. Tomorrow night we actually have a gentleman, David Ripley. He's the director of Idaho Chooses Life, will be here. And he's going to talk about, I don't know whether you're familiar or whether you knew about it, but there is a ballot initiative going on. They're trying to get signatures on it to actually, and it's an organization called Idahoans United for Women's and Families, is basically they're trying to do what they call the Reproductive Freedom and Privacy Act, and its objective is actually to undo Idaho's Defense of Life Act regarding abortions. It really is. Its whole intent is to turn the laws against abortions of Idaho upside down and get rid of them. So I really ask you to come and listen to David tomorrow night, and he's actually coming all the way from Boise to do that. Thursday, again, we're going to have another one of these, a special candidate forum. This one will be for City Council Seat 2. Teresa Dominic and Brandon Lee will be here hopefully to do this. And then last but not least, next week, Wednesday 26th, you stay home. We're not that, everybody stay home. We're not going to be here. We're going to enjoy Thanksgiving with everybody. So we'll do that. Okay, now getting on to tonight's event. Uh, this is a special thing. What happened was in Idaho Falls, you need to have a majority of the votes to be able to win mayor and city council and this type of stuff. Well, um, we had 3 candidates running, and nobody won, got 50% plus 1. So actually I think that Jeff got 47 and change. Lisa Burtenshaw got 47 and change, and Christian Ashcroft got about 6%. And so they're having a runoff election, and that election is December 2nd. So we're here to try and, get to know the candidates a little bit better, and make sure that we get the one that we really want into office there. Unfortunately, tonight it doesn't look like Lisa's going to make it. Okay? And I have some things that I just feel that I need to say. Okay? I've listened to most all of the candidates running for Idaho Falls, a position in Idaho Falls. The number 2 or number 3 item on the list of things was the apartments. Okay, that was down here. The number 1 issue that I heard all the candidates say and a lot of the people talk about was communication. Poor communication between the city and the public and the residents. Okay, and during that all of them talked about it, and or lack thereof, and all the candidates said that they would do what they could to improve communications with the public, with you. The citizens. However, to be candid, we had a candidate forum on October 1st, and that created some contention within some of the candidates. And primarily it was Brandon Lee, who's running for, city council, and he's an ally of Lisa's. He's told us this, Stand Up for Idaho, this. I attended the Mayoral forum and just felt that that the type of environment that was not that of a local nonpartisan event should be like. It was not what we should be like. I recognize your organization didn't orchestrate the disrespect and lack of civility that was shown, but I didn't feel anything was done to stop it either. So no extra grind on my end. I'm just focused on staying positive and optimistic in my campaign and the events I participate in. Thanks for understanding. So Brandon actually decided not to come to any of our forums. Now I would like to ask everybody here and everybody watching to do me a little favor, if you could. Go back on our Rumble channel and watch the Mayoral forum that we had. It was on October 1st. And watch it through and whatnot, and then let me know if you think that it had, if it was disrespectful and lacked civility. Okay, and the way I would ask you to vote on that, and I really sincerely ask you to do that. If you think we did okay, give us a thumbs up. If you think we were really disrespectful and uncivil and whatnot, give us a thumbs down. Okay, and that way I can go ahead and try to see what we can do. And if you have any suggestions on how we can improve things, please let me know. So we do try to make these things, we focus on trying to be respectful, civil, all of that, and I think that we are that. The one thing that a lot of people do not like is I let you come up and ask your question, and that puts the people up here on the spot. So anyway, for tonight's event, I called and texted Lisa several times. And my last text even said, "Hi, Lisa, the courtesy of a response would be appreciated." Any kind of response. But she never did respond. And she obviously has chosen not to come tonight. Okay? I guess we shouldn't feel bad, because my understanding is she was invited to go on the Neil Larson and Julie Mason show on News Talk 107.9, and she decided not to go that either. They asked some tough questions. They can. And so I suspect she didn't want to have to deal with them. Anyway, getting back to my first comments and whatnot, this is about opening communication. And I believe, that the candidates say they want to open their communication to the public. And all the candidates said that they would work to improve them. Now, in my opinion, this is just Doug Toomer's and whatnot. Lisa has a ways to go towards improving communications, like she said she would. And because she's obviously not here. So anyway, now we have another opportunity to hear from Jeff. And I'll just say this. We'll invite him up here, but ask him the hard questions. And that's what we're about. If you want to ask a question, I ask you, come up here to the microphone, ask your question, make it one question. Don't just sit here and hog the microphone. I'm not going to time you necessarily, but be respectful with each other and stand behind the one asking the question. But let's give Jeff a hard time. Let's really put the axe to the grind, okay? So let's do that. Jeff, come on up here. Let's give Jeff a big hand. That's yours. Okay, we'll start out with Jeff's just giving us some comments and whatnot, and then when he's done and everything, then I'll ask you to come on up and ask some questions.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for putting this on. For Stand Up for Idaho, this is quite a busy week. You have three events and that you're doing, and I'm so thankful for everybody else who came to show up and to ask questions, to show support. There's so much more that you probably could do on a Tuesday evening, and so I'm really appreciative of this. Appreciative for this opportunity, and then appreciative for all you guys to come out here too. And this has been a very interesting campaign and election season. It's not something that I was anticipating, and especially even the post-election. It's been pretty wild. But it's definitely interesting, and I'd highly recommend and encourage everybody to please go out there and vote. Early voting is open. One of the things prior to the election that was always a fun little thing to talk about is my oldest son turned 18 6 days after the election. And so he missed it. He missed voting for his dad by 6 days. So last Monday, he turned 18.
So did you get a new vote?
He registered to vote on his birthday, and on the first day of early voting, he got to vote for the first time for his dad, which was pretty cool. So I highly encourage you. Don't miss your opportunity, and if you know somebody who maybe didn't vote for whatever reason, encourage them to get out there and vote. Early voting is open now until November 26th. It's the day before Thanksgiving. After that, it's going to close down, and then it'll be regular in-person voting at your regular polling location on Tuesday, December 2nd. So, but yeah, should we open it up, or do you want me to
Go for it.
just go for it? No, that's cool.
Remind us why you're wonderful, and we ought to vote for you.
That's not why I'm here. But I will say, I don't know. I guess I'm quite the troublemaker. The fact that this pop-up candidate has caught the ire of the state. I've never heard of. Correct me if I'm wrong. A sitting congressman endorsing a mayor's race, and then a governor endorsing a mayor's race. What's always interesting is that this happened, of course, after someone lost the popular vote on Election Day. So there was when it was starting this whole campaign, it was in August, and it was right before filing actually took place. My wife and I, so I lead a Trail Life troop. I'm a troop master for a Trail Life troop, and my wife does the American Heritage Girls. And we planned a family camp up at OFCR up in Island Park. And it took a lot of time and effort to plan this big family camp. And we did it 3 nights, 4 days. And we came home that Sunday, and I'm like just camp dirty, unshaven, all this stuff. We got home. It's like 20 minutes later, this phone rings, and it's Local News 8, and they said, "Hey, we love to. We hear that you are a candidate for the mayor of Idaho Falls." It's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And it's like, we'd love to interview you. He's like, oh, that'd be great. And it's like, would you like to come into the studio? I was like, that would be fantastic. It's like, can you do this afternoon? And like, I'm like, stinky, dirty, right? It's like, give me an hour and a half. And so I went, shaved, showered, put on a suit, went into the studio. Not quite prepared because my mind was all on just getting out of camp, tired, everything. And we did the interview with Local News 8, and near the end, we were basically done. The interviewer asked, is there anything that you would like to encourage people with, or something like that, to that effect, like about your race here, your run? And I said something like, I just really hope that people actually get activated and get involved, and really participate. And even on election night, there's as we were anticipating, we're just waiting for those numbers to come out. It was taking so long for them to give the final count. And so the news was there, and they kept saying, like, can we go back and ask you some questions, because they're trying to fill time. It's like, yeah, no problem. And so one of the questions they asked was like, what in 2 years from now, what would you hope that your candidacy has done? And I said something to the effect of I really hope it shows that you can run a good, clean campaign, and that an average citizen, just a normal citizen, can step up and serve their community. And I think that this has been, obviously, I hope that the voters, allow me the opportunity to serve this city as mayor. But if not, I really hope that this is, regardless of the outcome, that this is a moment where it shows that just a regular citizen can stand up and serve their city. I think a lot of us think that, politics is for the special people, right? They have the connections or whatever, they have the money, whatever the thing is, they have the influence. They have been chosen by a certain group of people, and they're the ones who get to do it. Well, that's not true. Any one of us can. And so again, I would be honored to be able to serve this community, but I really hope that it just shows that it inspires other people to step up, and that we can make a difference, not just here in Idaho Falls, but throughout our whole state of Idaho.
That it?
Well, I don't know. You want to go into Q&A? We can go into Q&A.
Okay. We'll go ahead and start taking questions. I want to make one comment. We had some zealous clapping and even a whistle and whatnot like that. I think that happened during the mayoral race a little bit, and I think that was what was considered disrespectful and uncivil. So just so that we know that. So, Brad, it looks like you're up to speak first. So go for it. It's on.
Well, going back to what you originally said, I guess if you win by one vote, you know where the vote came from, and you'll know who to thank. I'm Brad Landis. I'm a retired 31-year employee of the city of Idaho Falls. So mine's kind of a numbers thing. So back in 2015, the population of Idaho Falls was 58,680. The projected population in 2025 is 70,421. That's an increase of a little less than 20%, 18.5%. The city's budget from 2015-2016 was $191,657,450. This budget for this year, 2025-2026, is $389.6 million. That's a 103% increase. So with inflation being around 36 or a little less than 36% during the same time period, is this something you see in the future if you're elected and re-elected of going down the same path, or you're seeing changes in the city budget?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had some numbers very similar to yours, where it's looking at in the last 15 years, the population grew 22%, but the budget growth was 5 times, right? 5 times the population growth. And is that sustainable? No, I think it'd be nice to see a little bit more clearer, like where we're putting our funds and how we're using our funds, because what it appears to me is that the city is consistently trying to find new revenue opportunities, whether it's downtown paid parking, a local option tax, all these other things, and it's like, to what end, Like, what are there areas where we can be more efficient and more effective with the dollars that we have? Because it's not sustainable. And what it is like if we are consistently assuming as a city that like our budget's going to grow by X% every single year, that's then an assumption that, well, then the citizens are going to have to be able to are going to be contributing, X% more every single year, and it's not sustainable. The biggest thing we should obviously focus on in terms of the budget is the things that any sort of municipality can only do, right? That the private sector cannot do, fire, safety, roads, infrastructure, those types of things. And so those are obviously the priorities, and we need to make sure that we prioritize those monetarily and really be judicious about where we have our expenditures and figure out where we have extra overheads that the city has currently that we just don't need to spend. Because I don't want to have here in another 15 years to have 5 times the growth. At that point, that rate is unsustainable. Like an unsustainable rate at any length of time is unsustainable. So we need to make sure that we are being judicious and with how we spend. Just because like it's us, it's the citizens here and the businesses here that have to pay that.
Next question. Come on.
I thought Doug was asking a question there for a second.
That's what I thought too. My name is Roger Powell. I was wondering what you thought about the balance between multi-housing units and individual housing units in the state of Idaho Falls. The city of Idaho Falls. Seems like there's been a huge increase in the number of housing units, and of course the taxing that comes along with that on infrastructure. So, what do you see as the balance there, Jeff?
Yeah, the biggest thing more than just multi-density housing, I think where my biggest concern is not necessarily the multi-density housing or high density housing. It's I want people to be able to own something. That's the biggest thing. So I want accessibility. So even if that means that it's townhomes that are more easier for people to get into, I'd rather have people own rather than rent. Right? I don't want a higher percentage of our citizens who are just dependent renters. I'd rather have them own an asset that provides stability in their own lives, that provides equity, right? And it provides stability within the neighborhoods. So it's a win for the individual, it's a win for the community. But how we do that needs to be important. Right, what we've been seeing is as land has been petitioned to be rezoned, as we see these pockets of fields that have come up, that's where we're seeing this multi-density housing approved in residential areas. And the argument that we've heard many times, Lisa shows up, is that residential is residential, and that's not always the case. R3 high density residential is different from R1, a traditional neighborhood. And we want to make sure that we're respecting people as they've invested and been part of the city, that we're respecting their property too. Because the argument has been, well, that's property rights. How are you going to say you can't just tell somebody what they can and cannot do with their property? It's like, what are you talking about? We do that all the time. The city does that. We have to guide that. It's not just a vacuum. So what somebody does on their property affects other people. We do that in ways that somebody was mentioning. You know how many, this is a goofy tangent, but it's an example of the government telling you what you can and cannot do with your property. Do you know how many dogs you can have in the city?
No.
3. You can only have 3, right? And so that's a limit on your rights by the city. That's your property rights. You don't get to choose that. You have to get like a kennel license if you wanted more than that. But those are restrictions that the city has put on individuals because they think that's what's best for the city. We do that all the time.
Right.
Obviously, we're not going to take a piece of land in the middle of a residential area and say, yeah, you can totally have a pig farm in the middle of this, because it's not appropriate, right? For the quality of life or what the surrounding areas. And so just to say that it's who are we to say what somebody can do with their property? It's like, well, actually, no, that is the proper role of a municipality to help guide the growth to be proper, whether that's through zoning, whether that's through ordinances. And so when it comes to multi-density, I think or high density, I think there's definitely a time and place. The two examples I give all the time, because I think they're wonderful examples, are Snake River Landing and Jackson Hole Junction, where those were part of a redevelopment zone, and they built the infrastructure specifically for that type of development. And so they weren't disturbing existing neighborhoods. So they put in the streets, they put in all the features, the amenities, everything, the infrastructure for that type of housing, which actually makes it even more attractive for people who want to live there. And that didn't disturb from a traffic point of view or a neighborhood character point of view in other areas of the city. And it's at a location that is close to the freeway, right? So you're not having crosstown traffic, a whole bunch of density in one area that has to go out. So it's one of those ones where like that's a really smart way to do it. And so as we see this infill land throughout the city, and I'm not talking about like sprawl. I'm not saying like, oh, let's just keep pushing it out to the borders, right? Because that introduces new problems in and of itself. But as we have these infill, whether it was traditionally county land that it became annexed into the city, it is right next to city utilities. It's much easier then to develop those. Well, we should definitely be guiding that development. But more than anything else, it's if we're going to have high density, I want to make sure that it is in the appropriate place that is beneficial for both high density without detracting for the current citizens who have invested in the city. And then I would love to try to encourage as much as possible ownership. So even if it is a townhome or a condo, I'd rather have somebody own that and be invested in the city and be able to start to create generational wealth rather than just being a dependent renter where whenever their lease is up, every 18 to 24 months, the rent is just going to keep going up, and they're on that cycle, that never-ending cycle of renting and never able to get ahead. So that's kind of how I view multi-housing here.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Jeff. My name is Tim Erling. I'm from Idaho Falls and Shamrock Park. I wish Lisa were here. I could ask her this question too. I'm annoyed with the mayor and the city council with their rules for open mic or members of the city to speak.
Yeah.
As I understand right now, it's really strict.
Yeah.
It's limited. Speech is limited, and it's frustrating. And I'm wondering how you feel about that, and what kind of changes you would make. And have you noticed very few members of the people that live in the city limits attend the meetings?
Yeah.
And I feel like they're disenfranchised. They're not welcomed, and the meetings are only for the elect. And so this bothers me, and I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah. Thank you. I think especially with the city council meetings, I think there's a vicious cycle where there's friction to the process for people to give their input. But even when their input is given, if it's allowed, because if they're talking about that subject for whatever reason, you can't address something about it, and there's no two-way conversation, right? So it's just people feel like they're just talking into the air, and it feels like their opinion or what they say isn't taken to heart or valued or is able to make a difference on the direction of things, where things go. And as people feel discouraged because of that, they start to self-select out. And as more people, and so it's this vicious cycle of just disengagement. And so I'd love to work with the city attorney and figure out, like, okay, why are these rules set up this way? Can we make it more accessible? We should be hearing more from other people. So that's how we can make an informed decision, and then also just figure out because sometimes it can be really intimidating to just go up to a city council meeting and you have your set amount of time, and you're on video and all that stuff. And if there's another avenue that's maybe informal, that where you can actually have more of a two-way conversation too, like a town hall type of thing. I think that would be incredibly valuable to spur that engagement. What we want to do is make sure that we are allowing and giving time to truly understand the concerns of the citizens. and being able to then take that and be able to be informed and making more intelligent decisions. So I might have this is what I found with myself. Like during this whole campaign, I'd have ideas about some things like, oh yeah, I think this is kind of like the direction I think would make the most sense for the city. And as I talked with people, they would give me tell me their story, and it helped me think about something that I never considered before. And it helped make me more well-rounded. And it's like, oh yeah, I had never considered that aspect of it, right? And so that's what we need at all levels, is to be informed by you guys. And then, of course, what we need to do as city leaders is make sure that even when we come to a conclusion, we need to make sure that we're allowing people to voice their concerns in the most accessible way possible. And so we can learn from it, take that to heart, be sincere about it, find other avenues if we need to outside the current structure. Try to enable this two-way conversation, and then when we make decisions, we really need to explain the why. And the why is so important to me. There's a really great book, Simon Sinek's Start With Why. It's one of those books that really changed the way that I think about engagement and management and everything else, how I like to try to communicate. And if you start with why, if I explain my why, not just the what. Oh, this is what we're doing. But I say, like, okay, this is why we're going to go this way. This is what I feel is the best. Considering all the different options, this is the thing that makes the most sense for most people. And you explain the why. Even if you disagree with me, at least there's no doubt of like why the person came to that conclusion. Otherwise, if you don't give that, then people can interpret and assume your motive, and that's not what we need to do. He's like, oh, Jeff did that because X, Y, Z. It's like, well, no. If I explain the why, then that helps remove all doubt of any motive. And so that's what we need to. That's one of the biggest things that I've always thought about leading up to this is like, hey, we need to do more of this two-way engagement. But going through this whole campaign, I've really seen it, like how it's even changed me. As you guys, I said this, like you are the best consultants that the city could ever have. And so why are we making it harder to hear from you? We need to be able to listen to you and have that better engagement. And whatever we can do to foster that and whatever we can do to engage that, that's what we need to pursue.
Hi, Jeff. My name is Jillian Berger. I'd like to explain why I'm asking this question. Because I'm a homeowner and on a fixed income. I'm actually asking this for a neighbor who's concerned. She's a widow. I am too. And on a fixed income, concerned about keeping our houses. So property taxes are a problem. City taxes are a problem. It seems like the state has put in I think it's a state thing that requires that cities only increase their taxes by 3% each year. Is that correct? Well, it's like the speed limit. Whenever you put a limit on something, you go to that level, whereas it's just the limit. You could go less, and so the city could raise their taxes less than that. But it seems like they always have to do it to the limit, 3%. And not only that, but they like to recap in years when they didn't do the limit. I forgot what you call that. There's a term for that. Anyway, we'd like to know if you would push for not raising taxes 3% each year and doing it less.
Yeah, that would be my goal. I think a level of success is not saying when like the new budget comes out. This last one was $389 million. I think the success would be like, was it less? Do we get to 380? Like, what do we do to be more effective and more efficient? And that 3% is always compounded, right? So if you think it's like, oh, it's 3%, then it's 3%, then it's 3%. You have it's not just it's additive. It adds up. It's compound interest over time. I think the only time that they didn't do the 3%, I think, was 2008 during the housing crisis. But then I think they made up for that.
I'm sure they did.
But yeah, I think that should be the goal of the city is like, is there a way that we can be more efficient and effective with our dollars to actually have a lower budget than we did the previous year? Property taxes affects especially retired people, widows, people on fixed incomes. That's a huge percentage of your living expenses, and I've heard from many people how it's getting much more difficult. Even when you have your house paid off, that's still like the largest output of your living, and it's really difficult. I've heard people say like I might have to move out of the city just because of that, which would be terrible, right? And if we look at the budget, it's only 16% of our budget of our $389 million comes from property taxes. And I know that this is way bigger than the city level. This is if the state ever wanted to entertain, either saying no property taxes or capped. I know there's some programs for capping on fixed incomes, but if there was ever something where we said for certain groups of people that we didn't collect property taxes, I think it would be a worthy honor to figure out how we can find that 16%. Or even a fraction of that, because it wouldn't be everybody, but it would be a great honor to try to find that in the budget to allow people to be able to live more comfortably within the city.
Very good. Thank you.
Hello, Jeff. My name's Kevin Skinner, and I got to observe you a few months back when you were here visiting and sharing your ideas. And I would like you to be able to share an idea or share with us your decision process. I think that really helped me understand the why, and you went through and enumerated the hierarchy in making your decisions, and I think that would be helpful to us all to know that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for that. So on my website, I have, because I was trying to think, I wanted to try to explain, going again back to the why. I think it's really important to see how you approach a problem, and what are your values, and say like, okay, this is the top priority, and these are the second, third, and fourth. And so I was trying to think of it from city leadership. What's the most important thing? And the most important thing are the current residents who live in any sort of city, followed by, so that's first, followed by the current businesses. Then our visitors who come to our city, and those, it's not just tourism, but that is obviously a fact of it. But it's people who come to shop, do professional services, whatever it happens to be, people who bring in money and bolster our economy within the city. Then it's future businesses is fourth, and then the last is future residents. So those are kind of like the it's almost like a what is that called? Like radar, where it's like it's the same thing backwards and forwards, right? So it's like residents, businesses, visitors, businesses, residents. And what that order means, why that's important, why I was setting that up, is thinking like anything that is coming into the city, you need to make sure that anything that would positively impact one of those five doesn't negatively impact one above it. So for example, if there's an opportunity to bring in a business to the city, to cater, to bring in a business, but it would negatively impact the current residents, well, then that's no good, right? We don't want to benefit something that's lower on the priority. Not that it's not a priority. All five of these are priorities, but we need to make sure that there's a proper order of how we think about these things, right? So if we bring in a business but it negatively impacts the current residents, that's a no-go. If there's something that we can do to increase the visitors of our city, but at the expense of our current businesses, that's a no-go. And people are always asking, like, well, why is future residents last? It's like, well, because I would hope that people want to come and be a part of our city for what our city actually is. And if they are, then they become the number one priority within the list, right? And so that's how I always try to think of it. It's like, ideally, whatever situation you're dealt in, hopefully it's a win-win for everybody. But at the very least, you need to make sure that you're not prioritizing something that's lower at the expense of the things that are more valuable within our city. Everything is valuable, but these things, like you as the residents, are the most valuable, followed by the businesses, visitors, future businesses, and future residents. So that's kind of how I think of like the decision-making process in things. So thank you for that.
Hi, Jeff. John Hollis out of Idaho Falls here. Hey, I just want to point out that from the first time I saw you here to the time you're here now, the amount of information you've gleaned about Idaho Falls is very impressive. The time that you've taken to learn what's going on here, it just amazes me, and I thank you for that.
John, thank you.
So my question is, in our police department, it seems like we have too many chiefs, not enough Indians. And, so I think our top end's way heavy, and we just don't see a police force out there on the streets.
Yeah.
And that would help in our crime. What are your thoughts when you're mayor that you can change in our police department to make a better appearance of police officers on the force?
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, I believe in our police department we have somewhere around 112 full-time employees, something like that. And for a city of our size, based off of a 2020 study, they said that, and as you get more population, there's different complexities. We should have a police force that is about 120, and so we are short. And the city council has approved for 2 new headcount every year for the next 5 years. So in 2030, we'll be at 2020 levels. But so it's one of those things. Like, this is safety and infrastructure. Those are the things that are like the most specific needs that only a city can really fulfill. And so we need to make sure that if those are our priorities, that we're actually making it a priority. Right now, we have for bids for officers who can be on the street, we have 37 available officers for bidding, which means that we barely meet we just barely get over our minimum for our patrol officers in any given patrol. And I would hate to be consistently at the minimum, because what that does is it puts pressure on all those officers. Right. It would be better to have more out there, so that we can have better margin for proactive. I mean, our officers do an amazing job. I was really privileged to do a ride along, and I totally scored like the best ride along because I got to go with the K9 unit, and maybe I'll tell a story about that in just a bit. But it was so educational for me to see how methodical they are as we're driving around, and because they know where the bad areas are in town, and they know what to look for, and they're multitasking, looking up license plates as we're cruising around. So these guys are doing a lot. Is it on? All right. Okay, so anyway, so if we had the availability for more actual literal boots on the ground officers for patrols, I think that would make things, it would improve things dramatically, not only for the police force themselves, for their quality of work, and not overextending them or overburdening them, but it also improves safety, consistency throughout the city. So yeah, I would like to take a look and figure out where, of those 112, we only have those 37 as patrol officers, do we have an imbalance here, and how can we fix that over the coming years?
My name is Roger Clapp, and I just keep my name on the record so when the people in the black suits can find me even more easily. So based on the last question about the police, I live in a very good neighborhood in the west side. For 4 years, a drug dealer lived next to me. For 4 years, I constantly called the police, called the chief of police, called the mayor. Nothing happened.
Wow.
So it's about, it's not about numbers, it's about policy.
Yeah.
And then that's, what's going on with that. So you could have a department with 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And just ride around and do nothing. Or you could have your neighborhood overrun by people
Yes.
that want to leave because the police who did nothing about the people that are doing bad things in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So
It's Roger. It's one of those really tough ones where I would like to understand why, if there are these known houses with drug dealers and things that are happening, why is it still allowed at the rate that it is?
we asked for 4 years.
Yeah.
We had cops at our house more than they had cops at their house.
Yeah.
We asked them to live in our house, and nothing ever happened.
Yeah. That's
So who's getting paid off here?
Yeah, I have no idea, but I would like to find that out too. I think that is because I subscribe to a broken windows theory that if you allow certain petty crimes to happen in a neighborhood, it's a symbol and a sign to others that this is acceptable and allowed, and you encourage more of it.
These weren't petty crimes.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying. So once it comes so serious,
we had the cops come over as they're loading drugs under our car.
that's crazy.
Says, "What are you gonna do about this?"
Wow,
And they just walked away.
wow.
So
Yeah.
where are we?
I have no idea. That is something that needs to be addressed. I have no idea why that is the operating procedure, because it shouldn't be.
Good thing is he sold his house and moved. So, and so the next question is, why is Simpson and Little intimidated by you?
Okay. That's a good question. Well, if you notice too, in this, there's two campaigns here, right? There's the first campaign up to November 4th, and then there's the second leg of the campaign. And there's definitely a lot of different tactics in the second half of the campaign. And what I've witnessed is definitely the circling the wagons of the establishment. And it's not about principles, it's not about policy. It really is this collective group versus somebody who's not part of the collective group, right? Just a citizen. And for whatever reason, that freaks them out. And I say, why? Why should it? And no, it shouldn't. And yeah, it's some, they were asking me, what does it feel like? And it's like, you know what? It's kind of a badge of honor. That's pretty cool.
Like in Peanuts, kick that football.
When we moved here about 10 years ago, I'm Michelle Lynn. We lived in Ukraine. It was awesome. Then we came here, and it was the most beautiful, still is, a quiet little town. 10 years later, there are apartment buildings unfinished everywhere I go. Out of town, in a town, on 25th, over by the highway. Every time I'm finding new parts of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I am worried about, and they're not even finished yet.
Sure.
And I heard the other day on the radio that we have overbuilt 25% already. We don't have the infrastructure, I don't think. I drive down 25th or any of these main streets.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of California.
Yeah.
Is there a way to put a moratorium on any more apartment buildings for 5 years or something?
Yeah. I don't think we can do a. Thank you, Michelle. I don't think we can do a moratorium, just legally speaking. But I think if we can try to help direct it,
Slow it down.
just in terms of zoning.
too
In terms of
much.
zoning, yeah. So that's the biggest. That's where the city has influence, because after that zoning has been approved, that's where we've lost our influence at that point. And then yeah, it really is. It is up to the property owners. Like, hey, we have the legal clearance to do what is legally allowed, and so we just want to make sure that we build the proper framework. Yeah, because that's what I've heard too. Is like the number of doors that we built, new doors, like housing units, is outpacing by quite a bit our actual percentage of growth. And again, it's one of my favorite quotes: an unsustainable rate at any length of time is unsustainable. So at what point does this become a negative that impacts not only those high density housing, but other, like your investment in your own house too, right? With the housing market. We would never want to be behind, but we should really be trying to be right at those rates. Now that is the free market, but I think what we can do as the city is work with locally minded developers to try to meet the goals of our city. Because what we're seeing too is a lot of the out-of-state developers coming in and building these apartment complexes that are not appropriate for Idaho Falls. When you have these apartments that are $1,999 a month, if you're trying to be fiscally responsible and only have 30% of your income go towards your housing allowance, then you're going to need to make $80,000 a year. And so either people, either can't afford that, or they're paying up to somewhere of like 50% of their income just going to rent, which is just going away, which breaks my heart. I don't want that for them. So if there were developers that understood, what is needed and valuable for our community, it would be much better. And because that's what we want. We want to have growth is good when it benefits, and that's what we want to do. Is we don't want to discourage growth by any means. We want to make sure we're doing it in a healthy way, and partner with people who understand that, and really, as a city, try to define what those goals are. And if our goal is to try to make accessible housing opportunities for our community, then we need to look at those things like, what is the median income of Idaho Falls? What is an appropriate cost, whether it is rent or mortgage, for our area? And so then how can we reverse engineer and really try to align our priorities towards that? That's what we should do. That's what would create a healthy community.
Agree. Again, just the other thing about the infrastructure and looking like a California highway, bumper to bumper. You wait through 2 red lights before you can even get up to the intersection.
Yeah.
And we haven't even begun filling up those apartments.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is a real concern. Just saying.
No, that's a huge concern for me too. Like that we're already, if the current traffic flow is inadequate now, then why are we putting more strain to the system?
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff. It's Angela.
Hello.
How are you?
Wonderful.
So I echo whoever said how impressive it is that you could not have been in office as of yet and still have so much information that you have gathered. It's very impressive. So this might be, I don't want to ask any unfair questions when you don't have that experience under your belt. But there were some segues to the budget that I'd like to ask.
Yeah.
With the budget being so increased, what kind of things do you see that could be done to lower our budget? And I get frustrated when I just hear about how we can spend money. Let's have more connectivity trails. Let's have more parks. And I'm thinking, if we already have increased our budget so much, should we maybe step back and think about priorities before we decide to have more parks? And maybe parks are more popular and wanted than personally how I feel about it. But I just feel like with my budget at home, I have to say a priority list of,
Yeah.
and what is your priority list, and where do you think you could cut?
Yeah, great question. So the priority is obviously the safety and the infrastructure, those things that only the city can provide. All those other things are wonderful, like and provide a benefit to the community and make it vibrant and great, like parks and rec and transportation and everything like that. But those are definitely the priorities. What I was really surprised at. Is looking at I know there's like disputes with the impact fees. I think impact fees are a great tool to use to help offset the impact for development, but it needs to be done in the proper way, both collected and then obviously used. And the four ways that it can be used, this is through state law, is for police, fire, transportation, and parks and rec. Now, I looked at the latest Idaho Falls impact study document because I just kind of assumed that it was somewhat of a split 4 ways system. But for example, a single family home currently, it's about $5,700 for impact fees. And so for police, of that $5,700 for that house, the police get $521 of that. Fire and EMS get $452 of that. Parks and Rec gets $1,500 of that. So Parks and Rec is getting 3 times the amount almost as the police for impact fees. And transportation is getting over half at $3,196. And so that's one of the ones that was like really surprised me. It's like, wow, that shows priorities. In my view, because I love our parks. I think it's one of the great things about Idaho Falls. We have 46 parks here, but I would rather have more investment if we're collecting those dollars to appropriately be used. I'd rather have those go to those things that are very unique for safety. Like I'd rather flip those dollar amounts. I'd rather have $1,500 go to police and $500 go to Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Jeff. My name is Tammy Reneker, and I have a question. Recently in Boise, excuse me, an 8-year-old girl was killed in Boise by an illegal migrant alien. And my question to you as mayor, how would you handle this, and how would you respond in protecting, managing, and guiding our city from becoming a sanctuary city?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. That should have never happened. It's always a tragedy when somebody who already shouldn't be here, right, takes a life. And this isn't a race thing whatsoever. This is a legal thing, right? And I think it's unfortunate when people might get really emotional about these things. It's like, this is not about anybody's culture or anything like that. What we want to do is be law abiding. And I think, unfortunately, even those people who, and I get it from emotional level where people are just anti-ICE and immigration enforcement. It's like, well, you got to think that also negatively impacts people who legally, came to America too. And it's not good for the individual to be here illegally. It becomes a second-class citizen. They don't have the same access to jobs or even safety, right? If something were to happen to them, they're less likely to go to the police because of their documentation status, which is not okay, right? We don't want to push them to an edge where certain levels of crime or things against them is acceptable. That is unacceptable. We shouldn't do that, and we shouldn't be allowing that to happen. And so it really is a legal thing. We need to make sure that we're upholding our laws. I mean, it doesn't seem that complicated. And I know people get really emotionally invested, and we really shouldn't. We should back up and say that this is best. This is best for everybody. It's best for the people who live here, people who came in here legally, and honestly, it's better for those people to come into our country in the legal way, rather than them being exploited and becoming second-class citizens here. We don't want that. I don't want that for them. And then when something like this, a tragedy like this happens, like it should not, for this 8-year-old girl, it shouldn't have happened. And that's just the worst. And so this isn't, it's one of those ones like, this is just the law. We should be consistent with how we do it. And I think it's really weird when any sort of area, like a city, who say like, yeah, but we're not going to abide by that law, or we're going to look a blind eye to that law. That's not okay to the citizens that city is representing, and it's not okay for the people that it affects.
Good evening, Jeff. Heath Scheibmeyer. Nice to see you again. With your interview I guess you'd call it an interview this morning, is what it turned out to be, kind of like tonight. After that concluded, there was somebody that texted Julie and said, I just got a text from a realtor that said that in Q4 of this year alone, we're going to have about 900 more doors open for apartments and housing.
Wow.
And then if you extrapolate that out a year, that's about 3,600 in a year.
Yeah.
But if I'm correct, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, we have about 1,100 people moving into Bonneville County annually. So it's obvious if the current pace keeps going, then we've obviously overbuilt. Do we have the job market to support the current amount of people coming?
Yeah.
That's a question. What do you perceive is bringing people to the area, and do we have the job market there? And then I have a follow-up after that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. From the job market, that's something that we should be encouraging. I know that we live in an interesting age where jobs are much more can be much more done even remotely, right? And that's not a bad thing, because what that means is that there's people who are living and contributing parts of our city who are bringing in paychecks from other areas. That's dollars coming out of Idaho Falls into Idaho Falls. So it's not a bad thing. But as much as we're catering and helping growth of residential, it'd be great if we were doing the same thing for commercial, and really trying to cater and find out how we can build new economic sectors here in Idaho Falls. The fact that I don't see we can't be like Provo and have a booming professional services, technology industries here. We have cheap electricity. We have access to water for cooling and everything else. I think that we could definitely have good, high-paying jobs where we're bringing in money from outside of our area that would benefit in Idaho Falls. So that's definitely something that, as you're increasing one, we should probably be looking at the balance of the other too. And it is a little bit odd, just because the way that job markets are going is that there is the availability of remote work that does kind of offset it, but that doesn't exclude it. That doesn't negate it. So we need to help encourage and make sure that we are fostering our economy and our job market just as much as we are encouraging growth of residential.
What do you perceive as the reason that people are coming here in such greater numbers?
It's because it's a great place.
It's a great place.
And I would hope that people are coming here for the right reasons. We came here, we escaped Washington because no matter what you were doing, no matter how hard you tried, it was a losing battle. I've always said, you can't choose where you were born, but you can choose where you move. And just because my kids were born in Washington State, that is not where I wanted them to finish their childhoods. I wanted them to grow up and finish their childhoods in a place that valued families and had a real sense of community. And so I think that's why the people who were born here stay here, and I think that's what attracted a lot of people to come here in the first place. Now, what I would hope is, because this is what I saw with my hometown as it changed, is it was a neighborhood community. So meaning that people didn't work there; they worked elsewhere. They commuted out of that town, and they just happened to live there. And as density grew, the town lost its purpose. It wasn't a community anymore. It was just another place that people happened to live. And I don't want Idaho Falls to become another place that people happen to live. I want Idaho Falls to be a place where people want to live and that they want to contribute and they want to be a part of it. And so that's one of the fears that I have is like, we want to be accepting to everybody, but I hope people are coming here for the right reasons, not because we built enough doors for them to be here.
If I can just do one more quick question. I texted in while you were on air this morning, and Julie fielded a part of the question, and you answered it. I really wish that I could have asked this person that would have been off to your left. Are there any direct subsidies or any form of property tax abatement for 10 years or 25 years that the city is doing to incentivize the building of all these these apartment projects? That's what I meant to say.
Kind of. So let me see if I can find this in my notes. The city, not directly. Well, there is something where they can have. Where is it? There it is. Under development. There is tax increment financing that developers can do, and this is where so what they can do is they can assess the gap of how much taxable value the land, like a piece of land, currently is versus what they would do within the future. So let's say that there's a large chunk of land that currently is worth $100,000, right? And it has a tax value of something like $4,000. Just making this up. But if they were to develop an apartment complex area, the valuation could be $2 million with a tax evaluation of $80,000. And so what they can do is they can take that gap, that $76,000 gap, and then amortize it for 20 years and use it for infrastructure, which in that case would be $1.6 million that they can offset to help development. So that's about the only thing that the city is doing. So it's not that they're giving money, but it's an allowance through tax increment financing. And so you definitely talk to Wade Sainer at CDS. He would know much more about it, but that's my rough view and understanding of how that works. The city, there are things that CDBG grants that are from HUD that some of these developers are getting. They're backed, so there's very little incentive if they were to default, right? But that's different. That's not from the city level. That's at more of the federal level.
Gotcha. I guess my point being is if there's any kind of direct subsidy or property tax abatement, this only incentivizes the building of more of these things. That's the
sure.
point.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, bear with me, because the longer I sit here and listen, the more stuff is hitting in my head. One, people were asking about jobs. The site, rumor, is 10,000 people are going to come in. For a fact, right now, one of the buildings out in the desert is bringing in contractors and electricians from out of state to work the job. Just information. Let me think, what's the next thing? Oh, the next thing I wanted to bring up is years ago, I used to watch the city cops. Not we the people, but the government, gave every police officer their own personal car. And what I noticed was they were using their car to take their children to the movies or take their children shopping in that car. As taxpayers, we're paying the gas, the insurance, the mileage, repairs. That's something else you need to look into if you get into office. Now, see, I forgot some of the other major things.
This is good. This goes to my big laundry list of all right, I need to look into this.
I can't remember now.
It's okay.
It took too
You'll
long.
remember them, Donna.
I know.
Okay.
Thank you.
No,
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Hi,
Hi,
Terry.
Jeff. My name's Terry Ireland, and I'm here on behalf of the Idaho Falls Downtown Merchants Association. And I just want to thank you for, when your campaign was starting, for taking the time to meet with me and hear about all of downtown and be a supporter of downtown. I
Oh, thank
appreciate
you.
you a whole lot. Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that so much, Terry. It's amazing.
Come on, there's got to be some more people, some more questions than you. Here we go.
Thanks, Jeff, for being here.
Thank you, Rod.
This morning, I did hear a discussion on Neil and Julie also about a city rec center and your feelings on that. And that kind of struck a chord with me because I had a good friend who lived in Oregon who was running a private Apple Club type thing.
Yeah.
And the city came in and set up a recreation home, basically the same kind of a business, and ran him out of business because he couldn't afford to compete. He couldn't compete with them because they were sending out flyers and advertisements with the tax notices.
Yeah.
And so there's no way he could compete, and he went out of business. So how do you really feel about the city establishing any kind of a community center or something like that that is in direct competition with private industry?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Ron. That's a good question. I think for a rec center, it definitely hits a different demographic. And I think for the size of a city that we are, there's enough demand that's just not being met. So we had a subscription to Club Apple. I think Club Apple is great. But for a family of 6, it didn't make sense for us because there wasn't the same options for our 4 kids. That it really is. It's a wonderful gym. It's a great gym for people like me who want to work out. Like there are some options for younger people and for older people, but that's definitely not the target demographic. And I think it's okay to pursue things, not to put undue pressure or competition on any sort of business, not just Club Apple. I don't want to just single them out. But I think that there's enough demand, and it would hit a different demographic that just isn't being met currently. And I think that would be a net benefit to our area. And you need to be concerned. I'm not trying to put them out, but at the same time, I don't want to walk away from a benefit that could benefit the community just because there's somebody else that happens to have something that is related. And I think there's room for both. And if there needs to be a little bit of just pivoting in terms of their approach, they've been around for so long. They have a wonderful client base. They're serving a different type of demographic that there might be some hit, but at the same time, it would be different. And so that's how I'd say for that. It's like I wouldn't want to not pursue something that would benefit the city just because it would potentially, not even say that it would, but potentially impact one particular industry.
I'm back. I'm going to bring up the money, the $1,500 that goes to the recreation. Do you remember the last meeting you had here when Lisa was here? We talked about there's 500 properties that are being mowed by the city that don't even belong to the city. So maybe you could cut money in that area, make the homeowners put in money for mowing those areas that the city's covering.
Yeah. It's. I was shocked to realize that when I was doing my informational interviews, and come to find out that there's all this overhead that the city has with drainage areas throughout the city within developments, and that the city is responsible for. They've taken ownership of that, and they're responsible for mowing and irrigation and maintenance and everything. And it doesn't benefit most citizens. It's not like it's a public park or anything like that. So for example, my neighborhood, we have an HOA, and the only liability that we have as an HOA is our drainage area. The HOA that's north of us and the HOA that's south of us, both of their drainage areas are maintained by the city. But our only liability that we have is that drainage area that we have to pay for. So there's a weird imbalance here, and I get it. I get why the city says like we don't want to do it anymore, but they've already accepted responsibility for all these other areas, and that's a really hard thing to undo. To go back to these neighborhoods and be like, hey, by the way, you're gonna have to do this now. But it is one of those overheads where it's like I don't know who made that foolish decision way back when how much does that cost the city? Right? When it should be the responsibility for that neighborhood, like it is for many other neighborhoods, including my own. And this isn't a selfish thing. It's like, this is just what is responsible. This is how these neighborhoods should be done. It's one thing if it's a public place, but it's like, when it's just benefiting a neighborhood and it's imbalanced, it's not properly or equitably applied, that's wrong.
The other thing we would like to know is what kind of corruption is there in this city?
Yeah.
Because we know
I don't
there is corruption. Doug, not a word. I've been getting a lot of political information from Boise and our government now, and they're finding a lot of corruption in Boise. You know damn well we got something going on here. Okay, second, and probably the last, because I'll sneak out. How many people sitting in this room are talking to their neighbors, their friends, their family members to push voting for Jeff instead of Lisa? How many are being successful at it? Because if we don't share the information we know, they're going to continue to go with the name they're familiar with. And let me tell you something. If you've seen her on Facebook, she looks like she had a hangover. I'm sorry.
Be nice. Be nice. Be nice.
I am nice. You don't do that.
Okay.
So my name is Sue Powell, and I just had a question about, we know that a lot of like Utah companies and stuff are coming in and buying up land to build these housing complexes. Is there something that can be done on a city-wide level to limit who can come in here and buy up land?
I don't think so. No, I don't. That would be a property rights thing. And if it was, it'd have to be at the state level for anything like that to happen. Like I've always thought that. Again, this is not city. This is state. That if farmland, there should be a high penalty tax for out of country purchases of our farmland here in America. Right. To disincentivize that, to make sure that farmland is owned by people who live here.
Okay, you need more homework. If you look at the city of Idaho Falls, there is so many properties under 5 acres that belong to the county. And some of it, I wonder if it's not where it's at, but who owns it. And why it's not being annexed into the city so we can get some of that tax revenue off of it is a good question. So you can address it or just do your homework on it.
I know some of the areas you're talking about. That's an interesting one because at the same time, if you go and look at the GIS map or on the city's website, or even just go into Google Maps and you type in City of Idaho Falls, I think if you say the city, it'll show you the proper borders of our city, and it's amazing to look at and just to see how, like, okay, we have that roundabout and then it cuts in and goes around, and then these couple lots are excluded, and there's lots of little islands and little pockets, and it's put around, and it feels odd. But at the same time, if there are people who, because as our city has expanded, the borders have expanded, I don't want to annex in people if they don't want to be annexed in. If they don't want to be part, yeah. So I want to respect that too. So there's definitely some areas that like, oh, that's convenient, but then there at the same time it's like consistency from I believe, like, I don't want to have people be part of the city if they don't want to be part of the city.
More questions? Well, I'm going to ask you one.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the rec center. Isn't that by the city providing that? Isn't that subsidizing something that the capitalistic market should actually, if there's a demand there, shouldn't market demand drive that? Why should to me, if the city is going to do a rec center and have all sorts of things in it, you take that incentive for private industry to come in and fill that need. And you'll actually do, and you will draw from some of the other gyms and stuff, if you will. Is that really the place for a city to be? I guess, is it really a place for any government to actually subsidize those type things, or shouldn't we actually be looking at the private sector to do that?
I think we should be looking at the private sector for most things, but I think there are some of those. Like a good example would be public transportation is always going to be a cost center, right? But it's a net benefit to the community. It's the same with even parks and recreation. Like you can say, like, why should we have an ice rink?
But that's not a rec center.
No, it's not. But
okay, and in a park, I have a basketball court. I might,
Yeah.
and that's fine doing those type things. But if you're talking building a facility,
Yeah.
and I don't get a vote, so you don't need to worry about me. Okay, I live outside the city. Okay. Okay, but to me, if you're going to go spend several $1 million, because there'll be several $1 million on a rec center, isn't that you're taxing everybody that's in the city and all that to be actually able to subsidize somebody to be able to go to this, rather than letting the private sector and private industry fill that need?
Yeah. Well, I think the private industry either hasn't or is unable at the scale to benefit the community.
Then why should the city and why should the taxpayers foot that bill?
Because it's a net benefit to the community.
How?
Because it provides recreation. It provides a place for people to enjoy seasonally throughout the year that we don't have access to now. We have amazing parks, but how many people are out in the parks in January or February?
But why could you? And excuse me, I'll just debate him a little bit here.
Yeah.
Okay. You're saying that the Apple and all these other places, and you're not going to take away from them. But what you're doing, though, say, okay, but we are really going to compete with everybody, and we are going to have multi-million-dollar facilities to be able to compete with everybody, and we're going to actually make it a lower cost. Because what you're focusing on, and I would assume, is the lower income people.
We want to make it accessible to everybody. I want to say.
Okay, all right, it's accessible to everybody. And now what I've taken is the guy that can afford it over at Apple or whatever is now saying, why do I need to go to Apple anymore? I can come over and do it here for fractions. I guess, why is it the city's responsibility to build a rec center?
It's not the city's responsibility. But the city, so it's not. We don't have to. But I think it's a net benefit.
Okay. Next question.
Speaking of private industry, I have been wondering why the city is going to all the expense of putting this fiber cable in everywhere when private industry, Sparklight, Silver Star, different private industries have cable already available. So people are intimidated or whatever into signing up with city fiber cable for $25 a month. Then they have to have another bill for a carrier. Whereas I have been on Sparklight in my neighborhood on fiber for 10 years. They brought it in 10 years ago. And then this city comes in with all we got to do fiber. Why? Why is the city competing with private industry that's already providing that service?
Yeah. So what the city is doing with the fiber network, and that's what the $25 a month is the infrastructure, but they're not the service provider. So when you pay the $25, that is the access to the fiber, but then you still have to use your service provider that's on top of that. So they're allowing a way for private industry to work, and in a way, that's actually a better capitalist system than the way that Sparklight is currently. So the service providers kind of got lucky, like the cable industry. So they had, when they put out all their coaxial throughout communities across America back in the all the way through the 80s. They got lucky the fact that they had some sort of infrastructure that they could piggyback and put data on, when initially it was meant for cable television. And when these cable providers, they actually had almost holistic control over these areas because they were putting the investment of coaxial cable throughout these towns. They were the sole provider in most instances. So that is, and so if you go to other areas, it just changes. It might be Sparklight here, it might be Comcast in another area, and so they have a monopoly over the coaxial that's used there. At least with the investment that the city did with fiber, they're providing the infrastructure, but they're not providing the service. You still have to have a service provider on top of that, and there's competition on that. So with the same fiber that's connected to your home, you can switch and you can choose a different service provider if you want. And what's great about fiber over coaxial is that over time, they've tried to use different ways to try to get the bandwidth as big as they can through that copper coaxial. But with fiber, this is a really great future-proof utility, because right now, there's almost no reason for a consumer to do this. But the same fiber connection that goes to your house, you can get a gig up and gig down consistent. That is a single fiber connection from your house to the data center. You can also choose 10 gigabit per second if you want it. You have to pay for it, but that just shows there's no reason for it now, but that's not to say that there wouldn't be a reason for it in the future. And so it's a future-proof infrastructure technology that they're putting in. And so in this case, it isn't necessarily competing. It's actually providing a platform for other businesses to actually compete versus the monopolistic practice of a lot of the coaxial service providers. I'm a technology guy. I like that stuff. So.
Here to lighten the mood. I have two questions, but the first one's to lighten the mood. Did you get to pet any of the canines?
Yes, I did.
Was it Rip or Harry?
It was Rip, because Harry's the older one, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, because Harry's more of the bomb dog and stuff like that. Yeah, so it was Rip.
Yeah, Rip special. Actually, this is a question from the live stream that I'm going to ask on behalf of someone else. This is not my question. They wanted to ask you what you would do as mayor about the rising gang violence in Idaho Falls. I have no idea about this. I'm just asking that question for them.
Sure. No, thank you for the question, and thank you for conveying the question. I think it goes back to the broken windows theory. So I'm not sure why certain things, if they are known, why they're not being addressed appropriately. And I would want to make sure that the police feel like they have the appropriate backing and cover to do what they need to do. And so I don't know the circumstances, so I want to be very careful about this. But whatever it is, I want to make sure that they feel that they have the support from city leadership to do their job. If they know of these known things, let's address it. Because again, broken windows theory, if we allow these things to happen, we show that this is acceptable, and it shouldn't be that way.
I was just listening to the last question. I was a police officer 31 years for the city of Idaho Falls. I was actually a gang officer for 2 years, so I know a little bit about it. I had my own office. I had a grant. I had my own secretary. It was really nice, actually fun doing it. But if you have drugs, you have gangs. Plain and simple, done deal. So anyways, my next point is more of a statement. I don't know if you want to respond to it or not. I'm not sure if you thought about it or if it's something you want to think about. And it kind of hit me when we talked about the rec center. When you talk about private entities serving the public, well, who are they serving? People that can afford it. Now, I was a school resource officer for 25 years. 15 of those years was part-time. We did it off-duty. And 10 of those years was full-time. So I know a lot about the students and what I saw. I know Idaho Falls High School when I worked there, and I haven't worked since 2019, and I hadn't worked the school since 2015, had an 18% absentee rate every single day, meaning 18% of the students were not going to school. Now, some of them probably had excuses, but a lot of them did not. Idaho Falls High School back then had more kids on probation than all the high schools put together. The kids that were involved in activities, almost none of them lived north of 17th Street. You can split the boundaries 50-50 in the number of students that went to school, but the kids, there was a junior high on the north end called Clary Gale, and the district shut them down and started busing those kids to the south. Well, those kids weren't welcome. They weren't welcome. They were the poor kids mixing with the rich kids. Clary Gale dominated in a lot of sports, had a lot of kids in activities. That those kids were shipped south, that stopped. My point is, if we have a lot of kids on probation, we have a lot of people in this community going to prison because there's no goals in their life to move forward. Idaho Falls High School, and I was told this by the past superintendent, had the highest dropout rate of any high school in the state of Idaho. Now, we're talking a few years back. So, anyways, I'm just letting you know what Jim Shank told me back then. So, I'm just letting you know there is an issue out there of if these kids are not going to be involved at a young age and have a goal, then what do we do for them? Now, another thing, too, is people don't really understand how many homeless kids we have in our town. It doesn't mean they don't have a shelter. They're placed in shelters. They're placed in foster care, and there's a lot of them. And these kids are not actively involved in that community and are more likely to fail in life. Yeah. It's just something to think about.
Wow. Well, thank you.
My name is Gail. If you'll indulge me for a minute, Doug, I have a question for you. Have you ever been in the Senior Center, Idaho Falls Senior Center? Have you ever been in the West Dietz Aquatic Center? I want to thank Jeff for his response about the recreation center. We do go to the Apple. It's wonderful that Medicare, if you have Medicare Advantage, includes the gym membership. But I spent a career as a dietitian, and after 5 years in the hospital, went to get my master's degree in public health. So I'd like to tell you some of what I see as the advantage for a rec center. If you're alone, you're not going to eat as well. It affects your health. It affects your sleep. If you have a group of seniors that you eat with 5 days a week or 3 days a week, that's a big mental well-being advantage. So that's how I see the tie-in with the city or any other government. And we've had experiences since we've lived in 10 states. We sure enjoyed it elsewhere. But our senior center is kind of drab and lacking. And we enjoy the Apple, but it's, like you said, it's not for everybody, every age. And I attended a meeting. Dave and I have been involved in a lot of city things and have been to city council many times. We've been to zoning. The best attended meeting we went to was at the Marriott downtown, the Residence Inn. There must have been 900 people at a meeting about parks. It is a very big deal here. So I kind of understand how they overspent, or at least I'd like to see some of that money go to police because they haven't been available when we've needed to call the non-emergency number. And they have AI Annie answering now, you know, because they can't get enough dispatchers and turnover is huge. So I just wanted to tell you why some of us might see the need for the rec center and appreciate the direction you took, Jeff.
Okay, can I I'll make a comment. I agree with you. Okay, and what I think is, and if you look at the things that are going on in society today, and the discussions in politics and this is, why are we spending taxpayer dollars on things? Why are we doing this? And for anybody that's going to have to answer this, you have to have a good reason, and you have to be able to articulate that reason. why is it good? And Brad coming up here talking about kids that are out, they don't have any place to go. They don't have any, they're homeless, or they have no place to go. And so that is the answer to the question. Because what I'm doing now is I'm serving these kids. And you got to be, and in my mind, you have to be specific. You have to tell why is that rec center needed. Okay? And it's not for the Apple, these, and you'll get a lot of people that can afford something else, but that's not what the intent is. Okay? And then the question would be, it's helping the kids, which is our biggest issue. Okay? And that to me is what drives these. And we need to ask the hard questions. So we think about it, and so we understand, and that we all do understand where our tax money is going. Do we agree with it? Is it being used correctly? And so I will always try to ask that hard question, because somebody's thinking about it. And we need to, in my opinion, the politicians and stuff need to be able to articulate, why is it good? Why is it a benefit? Where's the benefit really for the community? Well, the real benefit is, we have all these homeless kids. We have these people like this, have the kids in school that didn't have an opportunity. And that's what we're trying to do, is give the opportunity. And is that worth the investment? Yes. Okay. But in my mind, like I say, we need to prepare anybody, whether it be Jeff or Lisa or anybody, they need to understand why. And then they have to be able to follow through with who are they providing that service to. So that's why I ask those type questions. Okay? Thank you. Anybody else? Come on. We got time. Couple of minutes. Anybody? Anybody else have any questions? There we go. I have two guys. Come on up.
Mark Russell. I'm a retired lab rat. This is hopefully not a dark question. Maybe you can brighten this thing up for me. But all of these questions about limiting the building of apartments, we're talking about closing the barn door and the cows are already gone. Okay. We're overbuilt. And we don't have new business coming in to pay these people. Now, it looks to me like it's a 15-minute city thing, and we're expecting young, upwardly mobile, progressive, liberal, remote workers to show up here and have the good life here. And just the 15 minutes. Have you ever walked 15 minutes in 0-degree weather with a grocery bag in your arm? No. So we're overbuilt, and we're going to have all of these apartments that are empty, I think. This is the dark part of it. And so what are we going to do? Well, good old Uncle Sam's going to come in and then put the welfare people in there and the homeless in there and the illegal aliens in there. And the 15-minute city people are all happy because, by golly, we're progressive liberal. But do you want that? And if I'm not crazy about that, how would you do it? What could you do to make it not so bad? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's obviously not what I want. The hard part is that no matter where you go in the United States, some of the people who sometimes they do some good stuff, but some of the worst people are city planners that come in with their ideology over what is appropriate for each community. Each community is different, has different needs, and you can't just take the same approach and just say this is what's best for the people. And they don't even know that that's the case. They're too ignorant to realize this is what's best for them, which I find offensive. And what it needs to be is we should be comfortable and confident of who we are and what our unique circumstances are, and work towards what makes sense. So being realistic, not idealistic about our city planning. because yeah, it's super easy to say like, oh, wouldn't it be great if everybody lived this way? If you lived in a comfortable place and you didn't have to worry about maintaining your yard because you have a communal space and you can just walk to the grocery store and do all that stuff. It's like, yes, but that's not how we live. We have families. We have space. People want to have yards because they want to have something. They want to have their own little garden. They want to go to the grocery store that they want to go to, and that happens to be on the other side of town, and they want to make sure that they can get over to the other side of town efficiently and effectively, right? We have unique circumstances with our climate. Like you're not going to walk to, even if it was within 15 minutes, you're not going to walk to the grocery store or to Sam's Club in February and haul back all your stuff. You're just not. And so being realistic of like how we actually live and really try to figure out how the city can facilitate that as best as possible, and then also get out of the way is the best thing that we can do, rather than to say like, wouldn't it be great if this is how people live? No, that's I despise that. I think that is absolutely offensive, and I think that's one of the major reasons why I think we need to reevaluate our comprehensive plan, is because a lot of it is based on ideology versus what is best for our community.
All right. Good evening. My name is Johnny. I've moved here about almost 4 years ago, getting close to that. And I am a startup, small business owner of about a year. You've just talked about the need for watching the industry grow, businesses grow. So what is your plan to help someone who's in my position, just starting out, that I would love to grow and be able to love to bring people on? What type of incentives or what type of ways can you help to promote that to help me? And I mean, there's lots of things to look at too, between the different people that are out there to work. I know there's been a little bit, maybe this is a little statement, but there has been a little bit of hate towards immigrants tonight. I just want you all to, look at the stance that people are here doing what you're doing, right? They're trying to find a better way to live. Some of them had to leave certain situations, right? I know a lot of people from Afghanistan, from Iraq, who left their villages, who left their country because they had to for their life, right? And this administration for the nation considers them illegals, right? I believe that some of those people have done more for their country and our country than some people in this room. Not to make any agreements or disagreements, but I just want to make that statement. So with that, how would you address being able to help support businesses?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Johnny. Well, I hope this evening that there wasn't any interpretation or against immigrants. That's definitely not the point. And in fact, the goal is to make sure that we have good pathways to citizenship, right? And that we're upholding our laws consistently. We want to make sure that people who are part of our community, doesn't matter where their background is from or their heritage is, and we make sure that they're welcomed. And then when it comes to new businesses, I think the best thing that the city can do is to make it as easy as possible and be inconsistent as possible to get to yes. So no matter what your business is, if we have clear standard operating procedures, because when you go to the city and you have to get your permitting or you're going through the process of it, you don't necessarily care which department is handling what. You're just interfacing with the city, and so you want to make sure that it's going through the process, and then you have a clear expectation of how it's going to go. And if it'd be wonderful to have these a red carpet treatment for anybody who wants to do business within the city, so that they know what the expectations are. That's clearly laid out, and through a standard operating procedure, and they can guide you through it as efficiently as possible to get to yes. And I think it would be great in business. We have service level agreements, so that if you're working with any sort of company, there's a level of agreement where it's like, okay, I'm going to provide you this service, and then within this time frame, you're going to provide something back, right? There's this two-way give and take, and it would be wonderful if we had baseline standards for the services that the city provides, service level agreements within the city. So if you say, I apply for something, you should hear back from the city within X amount of time. And if you don't, then they should at least let you know, inform you, like that it's in the process of why they're not able to service you within that baseline that they have defined. I think that would be an appropriate way to keep the city accountable, so that we're working for you, not that you just provide your stuff and it goes into a void and you'll hear back from them whenever you hear back from them. And then hopefully you've done all the steps that you think you have to do in the process until you find out that there's the next step. So whatever the city can do with that customer service to make it so there's that one connection interface, doesn't matter who they're working with in parts of the city, that they can easily get you from wanting to do business in the city to getting to yes to doing business in the city efficiently and effectively.
Yes. Anybody else have a question? Okay.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for answering all these questions. I had a question from someone who wanted me to ask you. A lot of the questions have been about the planning that the city has done and not being responsive to the citizens of the city and asking them if they want it or not. They've just been telling us what they want to do. And I see that as possibly the regional, plan in America for teaching city council people what you need to do. And there's a long range plans to make things regional rather than state. And it goes along with the plan to have a new world order and, world global domination rather than having sovereignty in our states and even in our nation. And that's worrisome. I think a lot of our disgruntled feelings tonight is because of that. And because of this comprehensive plan called Imagine IF, which they planned without really checking with more than 1% of the population here in the city. And is there a way that we can nullify that plan? I don't know if it's in city code or whatever you could do to nullify that or change it. I think I heard you say this morning that some of these things are in code and you can't change it, but you could vote to do something else. And I'm a proponent of limited government. I'm not a proponent of all this government saying you will do this. We're going to set up these multi housing units and you will like it or not. Yeah. Is there a way to nullify the Imagine IF plan?
Well, legally speaking, we have to have a comprehensive plan. But
no, why do you have to have a comprehensive plan? We haven't had that in the 40 years that I've lived here.
We have from the state level, but usually it's not as a slick document as it usually is. It's usually a very boring document that just lays it out. The last major one was 2013, I want to say.
It was geared to go for a while, or what?
Yeah, so there's always the minimum. I can't remember if it's 10 years or 8 years, but there's a is it 10 years? There's a minimum requirement that that communities have to update their comprehensive plan, but you can do it at any time that you want. You don't have to do the same level that we did with the 243-page beautiful document that it is. It can definitely be much more, and that's typically what they are, is just these big white papers with maps, and then just goes through and talks about the things in a very, very academic way. So we can definitely, we do have to have a comprehensive plan, just legally speaking, but we can definitely update it. So we can either amend, or we can, but we're going to have to start soon anyway of planning the process for doing it new. But I do believe that that any sort of comprehensive plan should be, it's one of those ones where, like, the Constitution is not a living, breathing document. Your comprehensive plan should be a living, breathing document, because it should be adjusted as you're seeing the pros and cons of how things are going. And as markets change, as conditions change, as the demographics of your city changes, whatever it happens to be, industries change, all that sort of stuff. And so I think that we should have the maturity to adjust as we see the things that are working and the things that are not working. But but go ahead.
I was just going to say, so an amendment would add something. How about if you strike through a lot of things?
Yeah, you could probably do that. It would be worth it would be worth going with. So talking with CDS, talking with the city attorney, and figuring out like what is the process for doing this in an appropriate way. I think we need to make sure that I do more of a scalpel than a hatchet, right?
Yeah, that's what we want.
And to do this right, we want to do this appropriately. And I think especially in a role like the mayor, I think the best thing to do is to define goals. What are our goals? And then work with those subject matter experts to help figure out how to execute those goals, right? Because they're the ones who understand the nuances, the complexities, what you can and cannot do. But it's like, okay, but if this is the direction that we're going and this is the goal that we're trying to achieve, how can we get to that within whatever system we have to work within?
So you have spoken that our community does not resonate or fit with the idea of the walkable cities, the 50-minute cities. So you would push for, making that go away.
Oh yeah, I mean, it is that idealistic versus realistic.
Exactly.
I think and we just need to be. It's okay to be what we are. We are, and that's why people love this community for what it currently is. We just need to make the best version of that.
Exactly.
Not transform it or imagine it as something that it's not.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay. Any other questions? How much time are you going to take? Let her go first.
Sorry about that. Mine is more of a procedural question. So you have your ideas about Imagine IF, and nobody really wants that I know of, but I don't know how much sway the mayor actually has. Is it the city council? Do you actually have power to do anything about that, or is it the city council?
The city council has a huge influence of that, because even if working with CDS, if we wanted to make some changes, then it would have to go through the certain channels, and then eventually you have to go back to the city council for approval.
So the final say lies with the city council then. Okay, thank you.
That's why those city council races are very important.
This one's actually pretty quick. As a mayor, you'll be meeting with all the division directors to see what their goals are, to see what their needs are, and of course they submit their wish list and the budget set by you and the city council. My question is, would you also be willing, and I'm a police officer, I want to talk about the rank and file, would you also be willing to speak with the rank and file away from the division directors, maybe even unknown to the division directors, on what they see as far as the future of Idaho Falls? And what I guess my point is, a lot of times division directors will ask for the moon, and if they get a grade. If they don't, they get somewhere in between.
Yeah.
It seems like a rank and file guy will tell you, well, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing,
yes,
and maybe we can save some money if we did it this way. But I'm just letting you know my perspective of it. I was my union president for 16 years, and I wrote 12 proposals to the city, and I got 12 MOAs from the city. I'm not saying sign an MOA with the police department unless you're willing to, because they would love it, and morale would definitely go up. But what I'm saying is, would you be willing to just to talk to the rank and file and the average worker away from the division directors?
Oh yeah, completely. I think that it's incredibly needed. So so coming from a highly competitive industry, some of the best practices that we do are skip level meetings. That's just part of our culture. So the individual contributors aren't just having one. Hopefully they're having consistent one-on-ones with their manager, so they get the proper coaching and they know how to navigate their job and grow and develop and everything else. But having skip level meetings so that they're meeting their boss's boss, right? And then that manager is meeting the director and so on and so forth. If you have a culture of that, it provides this trust, right? It's not like, oh, why are you my direct report meeting my boss? It's like, it's not to try to find out anything about them. It's just that there's a level of transparency and awareness so that somebody at a higher level can understand what's happening at a lower level, and vice versa, what the concerns and priorities are, and so how they can be better at whatever their jobs are to enable everybody along the way. And so what I want to do is, like, I obviously going to have figure out those consistent, the cadence to meet with all of the directors for those 11 departments, and then the boards and commissions and everything else. But I want to figure out the appropriate way to get down, and it probably can't be at the lower levels with a one-on-one, but like, how do we have these group meetings with different departments that are not with the directors, not with the senior managers, so that we can actually hear in a very transparent way. And this isn't to like get dirt or anything like that. It's just the dynamics change, right? When and you want to make sure that there's a culture of trust, so that people, when they see things that could be changed and be done differently, it's like, hey, it would be really great if we actually did this rather than this, or like, we're wasting a lot of time doing this. It's like, well, why are we doing that then? Let's figure out a better process of this. So if we can facilitate those, like that is one of the things that I'm incredibly excited about. I wrote up a plan on my website. That's like my first 100 days. And that's one of the biggest things, like, is like figuring out, like, I want to have those regular cadence of one-on-ones. I want to figure out the skip levels. I want to encourage a culture of skip level meetings. It's not even just with the mayor, but within each department, so that people can learn, and we build that trust within the city government. And then how can I be as accessible as possible from the city employees to figure out what their needs and concerns are, and how I can best facilitate and enable them. Because that's how real leadership should be. It's not like everybody comes up and it's like this all important, it's not a pyramid that goes up, it's a pyramid that goes out like that, from the bottom. So your leaders are the ones that should be facilitating and holding up and making sure that the people who actually do the work and service our city are equipped and have what they need to do their jobs. And so that's one of the things that like incredibly animates me. Like, I absolutely love it. So that's that, and not just from the mayor's position, but this would be a challenge and an encouragement for all departments to embrace that same culture.
Any other questions? I'll have one last question, and then I'll let you say something. Okay. So starting off with, I commented about, the primary issue where all candidates was communication of the public. And so if you are elected mayor, do you commit to coming back to Stand Up for Idaho and addressing all of these questions from all of these people at regular intervals?
Yeah, of course. This is the best way to learn, like in hear and engage and build that trust and relationship. I don't want to be the Wizard of Oz that's at the city building. Like, we want to make sure that there's this genuine engagement.
Okay. So he's committed to come and answer questions and whatnot, which
I remember hearing somebody else make that commitment too.
And we do have you on tape, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's okay, Jeff, take a couple of minutes and finish telling us why you're wonderful and why they ought to vote for you.
All that good stuff, right? So throughout this whole process, this whole campaign, I'll say this. You remember? I think kids today have a little bit different when they have a car that tells you how many miles until the gas tank is empty, right? But like, you ever remember when you're learning how to drive? And you probably had like an older car, probably had a stick, and you were so in tune with that car, and you knew exactly what those tolerances were, and you knew exactly where that meter was, and it's on E, but you're like, it can go a few more ticks after E, right? So that's what it was like for the campaign, and I knew how much gas was in that tank coming around the corner. I could see the finish line for November 4th. We're coming up to the end, and I'm gonna womp on that gas, and we're gonna get past that finish line. And it's going to be awesome. I'm going to have nothing left in the tank, but I know exactly how far it's going to get there, right? And that's what happened November 4th, past the finish line. And all of a sudden, it's like, you got to go one more lap. It's like, I just have fumes in the tank. So that was like it was is this incredible moment on November 4th. Very humbling to see the incredible support that people came out for a regular citizen who wants to really change things and be a voice for citizens. And it did take me that good 36 hours to be like, okay. And it was really it was you guys who helped fill that tank back up and be like, okay, let's do this. What do we need to do? We need to rally. Like if this is what we believe in, if this is what we want to do, if we say that we want to have change in Idaho Falls, how do we do it? And it's like, well, we need to get people out there to vote. We need to get people to go out there and vote again. And if you know people who didn't vote the first time, like challenge them, get them, drag them to the polling place and get them to vote. And so going through this whole campaign, I'm very humbled. Thank you for the comments and stuff. It has been an incredible learning experience. And again, most of that is actually from people when they'd ask questions. And so sometimes typically what it was is I go to a house meeting, somebody asks a question, it's like, I have no idea. Now I'm gonna have to go do research on that. And then then I go to the next house meeting, they'd ask a question, it's like, oh, well, I just did research on that, right? It's just how it was. And so I'm really thankful for being challenged. I'm thankful for you guys asking these hard questions and making me think and making me realize where those gaps are that I need to fill out. And so thank you for making me a better candidate. And that's what I want to do as a leader. I want to have this engagement, and that's my commitment to you guys, is that this continuous development and improvement with the goal and purpose of improving this city and serving the city that we all love. And it's like, how can we do this the best way possible that is the most meaningful and appropriate and resourceful and best steward of the resources, all that type of stuff. Like how can we do that? And it really is having this engagement. And that's my commitment to you as mayor of Idaho Falls. And so just thank you for this opportunity. I want to say one last thing. Yeah, then everybody can go home. This weekend, I was asked today on the radio about some of the vagrancy stuff that we are experiencing in our city, and it's one of those things that the city isn't equipped to deal with on their own. But what we can do is we can partner with people who already do this, and and there's many of them in Idaho Falls. One of them is the Idaho Falls Rescue Mission, and there's other ones out there that provide for the city in all these different ways. This is beyond just government. This is just doing good for the city. And coming up here I know there was some issues obviously with SNAP and people getting the food and resources they need, and we wanted to make sure that these nonprofits are fully equipped for serving our community. And so we're doing a Spirit of the City nonprofit fair and community food drive this Saturday on November 22nd from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. over at 680 First Avenue. This is the old Planet Doom building over by Bolero. So you can come and meet the nonprofits caring for our community, find out how you can get involved, and then just come with any sort of food to donate to these places. For example, the Idaho Falls Rescue Mission, they provide 60 meals 60 lunches per day and 170 servings for dinner every single day for our community. And what it is we want to make sure that the people get with the physical needs that they're doing, but they're also getting the pathways for restoration to be cared for and part of our city. And so I'd really highly recommend people come out on this Saturday, November 22nd at 10 a.m. And donate and provide for the Spirit of the City. There's some flyers in the back if you'd like to learn more about that. But again, I just really thankful for everybody to come out. It's kind of cool and really humbling that you guys taking the time to do this. I'm very blessed. I'm very encouraged by all this, and I just say thank you. And let's go for December 2nd. Thank you.
All right, good job. Okay, before everybody goes, I'm gonna say this again. Hey, if you like what we do, please help us. Okay, really, buy a raffle ticket. Buy a book from Ben so you can help donate. Remember about this gala that we have on February 7th, and also tomorrow night's a special night. Idaho Chooses Life. Dave Ripple will be here. He's gonna show. You're gonna be asked to sign a petition to get this initiative in place, okay? David's going to tell you why you shouldn't do it and all that. And so it's very important that there's an effort to turn over or to nullify basically Idaho's Defense of Life Act. And it's gathering up a lot of steam over in the western part of the state, and it's going to have a lot of steam going through it. So you need to just be aware. So come tomorrow night and talk to David. Also, it's like Jeff said, and the question was asked, the city council has major influence. City council is, it's like Lisa was here last time. She said, actually, the mayor is the tiebreaker and what's that. So the city council actually does and decides a lot of these things. We'll have candidates here Thursday to talk, and it's important. And those candidates need your support also. So I appreciate you with that. And again, everybody, we do appreciate it. We won't be here next week. Everybody have a good Thanksgiving, but we expect to see you tomorrow night and Thursday night. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Take care.